There.
So this is our game plan. We have introduced ourselves. We have various scenarios. There's going to be a lot of talking and moving around, so you are not stuck to your chair. And then we're going to have a discussion about effective teaching practices. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you guys, what do you hope to learn from this session? Why did you sign up for this session?
We'll just go around room. Then we'll start with you, because I know your name and you're there.
Well, I'm teaching in college of nursing, and I want to be.
Change things up a little bit in the class today. We are all familiar with group work, right? So we're going to work in teams. We have 4 scenarios. We're going to start with 1, but the way the scenarios will work is a little different. So what I'd like you to do for every scenario is find a partner that's furthest from you. So you cannot partner with each other. You're going to find someone else to partner with.
You have to actually stand up.
You're going to stand up, walk around, and find someone to partner with. And then you're going to go over the scenario, and we're going to time you. So after 2 minutes, you're going to pair up with another 2 people. So it's going to be 2 people first. You discuss the scenario, then you meet another 2 people, then you'll be 4 in the group. And then you discuss the scenario, and then we'll report back. Easy enough? And we will time you as we go along.
So why don't we give them a minute to read?
Scenario number 1. Here, on the table.
It should be in your,
It should
yeah,
be
it's,
right in
it's
your pocket.
behind the, I'm sorry, it's behind this slide.
Yeah.
Everybody got it?
We're giving you 2 minutes.
A minute to read.
A minute to read. And then when you hear the sound, you're going to move and find somebody. So this is also a great way for you to meet someone you don't work with or have not worked with before. It's a great way to create connections with other people. She's in a hurry. And these are the questions here as you read through the scenario. What did this faculty member do well? All right, time to find a partner.
That's perfect.
And if there's 3 in the group, it's okay. And if there's an extra person, it can be 3 in the group.
We're timing.
Okay. You see what decorative structures do? Yes.
Like, I mean, this is the way my brain goes, like, they design a plan, so it's working together. But it should be, no one else's input in it. They all have to be very,
So you also, that way, you said it was including
maybe allow someone else to take it.
Okay,
Try to find,
find somebody, find with you.
so you have to do four in a group.
Like take weekends, which is
Find another two people, so the four of you can talk.
So can we join your team?
We have another 2 minutes.
Oh, there's a sign.
Should I?
Ben?
So we were just discussing about the things that the faculty members do. Like also where he's promoting teamwork, including everyone in the discussions, that sort of thing. And how he uses those teachable moments to assist or help the students understand.
We thought it was good that he also came back later in the day too, so he was always available to the patients and to the staff. So it's not like he
Yeah, just join the group and dive in. Sign up. Are you gonna?
we had a hard time coming up with anything that we could have done better.
The only thing, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I feel maybe it's kind of engages the discussion, which I guess if it's still needed, it also allow maybe someone else to take charge on just one patient. There we go, that resident or fellow or nurse, and that would be the homework, is to kind of write out the patient, work about it, and what's the patient that day, instead of the physician, or what's the patient. And also maybe the
So that's what, I mean, some are.
Yeah, I mean that could make sense. I mean if he's always running it, then it doesn't really let someone stand up to take like the leadership role, I guess. So
one patient that's what I've seen.
yeah, we've done that.
Yeah, so is this someone any opportunity for
All right. Okay, it's time to report back. So we're going to report back a little different as well. Okay, I'd like you to report back what you heard, not what you said. So report what you heard from the other team members. Basically, what you said is going to be reported as well. So you can report in your teams or as an individual. It doesn't matter.
Right now?
No, we're going to share. We're going to share to the whole.
Out loud.
We're going to share out loud to everybody. Yeah. So, what do you think about Dr. Hall? What did he do well? Or she?
The collaborative, the all-inclusive.
Inclusive? Okay. What else?
He welcomed feedback, made them feel comfortable.
Welcome feedback. What else?
The teachable moments he uses, he's able to help with their questions or any of their thoughts or opinions.
Okay.
So he was an expert.
She was. What else?
He was able to delegate responsibility to his team members.
He was able to engage them.
Okay.
He also promoted teamwork. They were always working as a team.
Yeah.
And to expand on that, he made them feel valuable,
Full value.
trust.
Do you recognize any teachers that you have interacted with before, Dr. Hall? Yes? So what could Dr. Hall have done better or different?
We had a hard time finding.
It was so positive.
But our group thought, maybe it's like we're thinking if he's always got the leadership role in rounds, maybe he could delegate a patient to someone and they could take the leadership role on that. So someone else has the opportunity to grow. It's kind of like running the rounds. Like that would be like our one thing that we thought of.
Anything else?
Our group also thought that maybe some individual time with each one of the students to
Okay.
see how they were doing.
Our group said a lot. I'm just reporting.
Right?
They thought that he could have basically a teaching plan for the topic for the day, and like maybe a checklist. And so like if a patient has COPD, that he could go further in depth into the disease, and then maybe give assignments on the different levels of the jobs. You know, like a fellow resident may need more information than a nurse that is relevant to their job, and more background on the disease, and explain to them why it's relevant, give assignments.
Okay. So, anybody else? Before we go to the next. All right, so we're gonna look at, you've actually stumbled on principles here, and so we're gonna go through them. So first one is student-faculty contact, then student cooperation. And I think he met both of those. Active learning, well, they were always up, moving, looking up things, talking. He gave them feedback. So if they were on the money, he let them know. If they were wandering off the track and off doing something or onto something that didn't really fit, he would reel them back in. He, of course, had to get through all the patients in the ICU in time for him to go do his other duties, so he had to keep them fairly on task and, you know, try not to wander off on lots of side channels. High expectations. He expected them to be ready when he came around, and he expected them to be able to talk about what all the results meant and what the disease process was. And diverse ways of learning, and that can be anything from, I actually could have written this into that scenario. For instance, if he drew things out, if somebody couldn't quite picture it in their head, or if they often had x-rays, looking at the results of the labs. All of those are sort of looking at diverse ways of learning, because some people have to see it to learn, and some people can hear it and learn, and some people have to have both things to learn. So by doing it such that they were using a lot of different things, a lot of different tools, their eyes, their ears, they actually, and their hands, they actually were doing some diverse learning. Right? So those are the 7 principles of effective teaching. You ready for the next one? All right. So this is what we hope we're going to get you to be able to do. And that is that when you leave here and you are out in your world teaching, that you will be able to demonstrate appropriate teaching behaviors to establish rapport with your students, monitor and maintain student engagement, minimize student disruptions, and maximize learning. And then, you know, your elevator speech, you know that elevator speech that you have to be able to give, describe at least 5 practices of effective teachers that facilitate learning. All right, here we go.
So with that in mind, we have another scenario. And this time you have to move around again, find a different person to work with. And you know the drill. Take a minute to read the case, find someone different to pair up with.
All right, we'll give him 2 minutes to read the case. One didn't seem to be quite long enough to read. Oh, he's already moving, look at that.
They know the drill already. No, yeah, he moved already.
I'm still a student. Oh.
So you should be reading scenario number 2. This is Dr. Ruiz.
So
Oh, I left
your
Professor
questions-
Murphy in there. That was a mistake.
Okay, that's
Let me change it. Let me change it. As it says, yeah. I know. All right, find somebody to chat with. Hopefully different from the rest.
Do you need a partner? I do. Grab.
All right, time to combine with another group.
What I mean.
I think that group over there doesn't have a group next group. And if you run out of groups, just join one.
Doesn't matter, yeah.
I think the concept we talked
Yeah.
I think the question is anyway.
Again, to give an idea how many people.
But maybe if he's running out of time react, they're kind of losing focus, maybe in his first minute lecture or something like that. Maybe just engage more actively with the whole thing than just at the end.
Pretty good.
Every few.
Just in the sense of like, those 30 classes.
Whereas there's learning, it's just talking and giving a lecture for 3 hours. It has to be explained. So what would I do different? The third question is make it more interactive. Or you want to do 3 hours, just include
He hit a lot of the main things that he did do well.
Well, that's what friends is those.
Came up with like logic that you could do.
feedback or include them
Like we thought the big thing, he's like during the class we were showing up. Like our program makes 10 students worry, we can do something like that. Because if 10 people aren't showing up, it kind of reflects negatively on him. So that's what you can do.
Are we ready to report back?
We're going to concentrate to take
That's a good point, right? If they had leave 5 minutes earlier than 150 minutes, that's 3 hours.
If I had my computer out in class, it wasn't. Yes, it was not for class.
Yeah,
So, you want to take this class, you want to take 5 minutes away.
All right, it's time for us to report back.
I guess 2 minutes is not enough. Yeah. We gave you an extra 30 seconds and you kept on going. That's a good thing. And that's the way we learn from each other. Yeah.
Douglas, you want to spearhead this one?
Sure. Since I used to be Professor Murphy. Changed to Dr. Ruiz. So what did Dr. Ruiz, which of those 7 principles did, well, first of all, what did he do well?
He was prepared.
He was well prepared,
Up to date, recent developments, no outdated.
which is what we all should be doing. What else?
He
Nothing else?
consulted people to make his information better
Okay.
than he knew he could do,
Okay.
so.
So do you think we do that as educators?
Do we do that? Some,
So should we do that more often?
probably. It depends on what you're trying to do.
Are there people that will just give me feedback on my PowerPoints?
Sure.
Yeah.
People in the Office of Educational
Yeah.
Development.
I mean, in PEDS, I do that to my faculty. They'll send the stuff and I'll review it for them.
Huh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, we have resources to do that. We have people who will help you with that.
And you've actually got a session on PowerPoint coming up.
Yeah.
So which of the 7 principles did he neglect?
Active learning.
Okay, no active learning.
Diverse ways of learning.
Say that again?
Diverse ways of learning.
Yeah, you expected everybody to do it exactly the same way, right? What else?
Time on task.
Time on task. How did he neglect that? What did he do to neglect that?
When he finally got to the interactive part of class, he hadn't allocated time for it and ran out.
Right. The other thing too, you'll notice, what were the students doing during that session?
Playing.
Yeah, they were way off task. He wasn't monitoring what they were doing during the session, which is it's difficult, especially if you're in a lecture setting.
So it's a
But-
35 student class, it's going to be hard for him to monitor everybody.
yeah, you don't monitor everybody, but I heard somebody back there was saying something about what he might have done to monitor time.
Walking around the room.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you see faculty members who do that, especially if you engage with some active learning techniques, and then you just wander around and make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to do. If they're not, you ask them a question, get them back on task. So that's an effective way. What other principles did he neglect?
Student cooperation.
Say it again?
Student cooperation.
Yeah, they were all in there alone, right? They were not learning from each other, with each other. What else?
Active learning,
No active learning.
no, learning solos.
So, what else might he have done? Well,
High
George talked,
expectations.
Set the expectation.
he neglected that one?
I would think so, because if he had higher expectations, probably the students wouldn't be so off task, I think, or he would have done something. I don't know. I would think so. I think that he didn't have high expectations. He was just delivering. He was doing what he was supposed to do, and that was it.
Actually, you make a good point. I think he was focused on what he as the teacher was doing and not what the students were supposed to be doing.
He just hoped the students would learn.
Right, yeah, it was sort of like, take a chance that they're gonna learn it.
Well, it's old
rather than-
school, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's old school, it's old fashioned, and kids are not gonna, they're not gonna stand for that anymore. They want to be involved, they want the feedback, they want to be a part of it, they want it fast.
Well, you know, the other thing too, though, these principles of learning, I mean, nobody ever learned well using old school. Nobody ever did learn well. These principles, you'll see the date on this is from 1987. That's a review of literature for the 40, 50 years before 1987. So, and the literature has affirmed those principles of learning ever since, with many different kinds of audiences. So nobody ever really learned well that way. They just sort of made it through. So now we have the advantage of having research to support good teaching practices.
The other point I wanted to add too is that a lot of times we teach the way we were taught.
Right.
And this is a clear example, this is what they saw, you know, and so I guess that's the best way to do it.
That's all they know.
I feel that he was working really hard and did great research and updating the subject matter, but he didn't update himself on the way.
Very good point, yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but that's how he's been, so.
Yeah, very
Laura's
good.
been trying to say something.
Yes.
Well,
Laura.
no, that comment made me think of something. He clearly did not avail himself of his school's Educators Academy. But the other thing, the high expectations, he may have had high expectations, but he never, at least in this, didn't communicate those.
Yeah.
And, you know, I found over the course of my teaching that, gosh, you can tell the students what you want them to be doing, they'll do it.
Especially students at UMS. I mean, we select really highly motivated, really bright students. They're ready for any challenge. And I think a lot of times we don't communicate effectively what our expectations are. And I actually, honestly, I think sometimes we have lower expectations of them than we really should, because this is an extraordinarily bright, hardworking group of people who we're privileged to work with.
And the other thing I was thinking about too is, I mean, this is about the lecture style of teaching. And the way we are doing things now too is a very different way of doing things, because some people don't feel comfortable changing the way they teach. It's easier to stand at the podium,
With the podium between them and.
right, and deliver than to say, well, you
Yeah,
know.
like I am.
One thing I learned when I was in grad school is, again, you don't know everything. That's why I prefer to do it this way, because I can learn from you. And I'm learning a lot by just hearing from what you're saying. And most of the people that teach us always don't feel comfortable acknowledging that they have limited knowledge.
And I think that's very true, especially of healthcare, because you've been taught that, you know, I've got to take care of the situation right now. I've got to be the guy that knows how to do it, and if I don't, somebody's going to die or get hurt or whatever. And so when you start to teach, you feel like you're supposed to be that expert that has all the knowledge. Well, we don't have all the knowledge. We will never have all the knowledge. some student is going to have some piece of information that we actually have never heard of, that makes sense, and we learn something. I've always said, when you're teaching, the day you stop learning from your students, you might as well quit. Because you will always learn from your students.
That's the fun of teaching. That is the fun of teaching.
It is.
One other thing I'd like to add here before we move on to is that Beatrice was saying that, we're learning from you as well. One of the things that's going on for me, and from my perspective as a teacher now, is that I already have a good sense of what kind of a grasp you have of these 7 principles. I know that you can identify several of those. I know already that you can give examples of those. I know already that you can come up with alternative methods to enact several of those. So I'm learning a lot from this interaction here that I could never get. I could never learn that if I were just up here lecturing. Okay? So there's a lot of advantages to you as a teacher to active learning, because you pick up a lot about your students at the time.
And to add to that, it's also a way to get feedback on how you're doing as a teacher. Because how do you know that? Because oftentimes we think of evaluation as end of course evaluation. We don't think about the formative feedback and assessing student learning as we go along. And so this is a good way, trying to engage students. Asking questions is a good way to gauge where they are in their learning. And that too may help you adjust your teaching.
So I have one other thing I want to bring up, since a number of you have talked about online or Blackboard. So what do you think, Dr. Ruiz ended up at the end of his lecture, and as he's wrapping up, he didn't get to everything. So what could he do with Blackboard or online that could help him facilitate that knowledge back to the students during the time between classes? What can he do?
Set up a chat.
Discussion board.
Discussion board.
Okay, he could do a discussion board. He could actually write them up if he wanted to and post them as a file. So he could actually do PowerPoint if he wanted. There are a number of things he could do. And so online, even if you're teaching in the classroom, having online ability is really wonderful, because it helps you to cover things that you didn't have time for while you were in the classroom, or things that are really interesting and that maybe not all the students want to go into, but you think some of them might. So you can post those kinds of things so the students that want to delve into that can.
One of the things that I thought was he seemed to be running out of time. So there was probably some background or introductory information that he could have posted ahead of time before class, and a little bit of a flipped classroom in that they could have listened to his PowerPoint, listened to his lecture, and then had more time for the active things in class.
And I'll put a plug in. We have resources and people here on this campus to help with that.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that for your class, OBD is available to help with that. Like I said, we have faculty in pediatrics, and that's what I help them with. And it's all about, a lot of it is, and which we do, is planning ahead. But sometimes we have all of these ideas in our head about, I wish I could do, but I don't know who can help me. And there's a lot of resources on campus and people to help you with that.
And sometimes we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
But we're here to tell you, we do. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about each principles just for a moment. So what do you think about faculty-student contact? Is it important for the students to really get to know the faculty, and why?
They can relate to you.
Okay.
And you can relate to them.
Good.
I mean, for most of us, there's an age gap in all of our classrooms. I have students that range from their early 20s to their middle 40s, and they need to have that interaction and those life experiences.
And for teachers, new assistant professors who haven't had that before, how do we initiate that contact?
What else?
I mean, you may have a class, you may teach someone, but not everyone feels comfortable with all the issues that go on, you may not be comfortable letting students know that you're approachable. So how do you do that?
So if you have a teacher that you like and that you feel is trustworthy and is approachable, are you going to work harder for that teacher, or are you going to work for the one who just gets up there and throws a bunch of stuff at you and leaves and that's it? You have no interaction. So are we going to work harder for A or for B? We're going to work harder for A. Okay, and so that's why it's important. And it's also important for instructors and, well, for faculty members to really know sort of where their students are coming from, because as we get different generations, we sometimes forget that how they're going to do things is very different, and we expect them to do the same old thing and they surprise us.
I just think like it's a little bit hard when you have bigger classes. For example, I used to teach 150 students.
Yes.
How am I going to establish an individual? I'll go crazy, and
Yeah.
you know, so there are the ones that are more interested in, and I'm open. You have office hours, they come and they do all that, but some students, you just can't. Like right now, for example, I'm teaching online classes and I have 8 students in 1, 2, and I already met with them the first week of classes to introduce myself and to get that
Yeah.
contact, which is easy to do, but with a bigger class.
It is,
really
you are
hard.
absolutely correct. It is not easy to do with a big class. And, you know, a lot of times, Douglas, you had your hand up.
No,
Let me go.
I was just gonna say, the research doesn't necessarily say that it's an individual contact that's important. It's student-faculty contact in and out of class. So it could be that that contact is by the email that you send the group of students. It could be that discussion board after class, as you mentioned. It's just the student-faculty contact that makes the difference. So it doesn't have to be all 150 of those people. It could be just, you know, smaller groups, smaller groups.
Yeah, individuals aren't that long.
Yeah, it is hard.
Okay. So, encourage cooperation. How are we going to do that? Okay, I'll give you. So we have those students that are really competitive, right?
Get rid of grades.
And then they won't do anything because they're angry. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But we are social beings. I mean, there are people like me who are very introverted and would rather do it by myself. And you have to really push me out there for me to work with somebody else. You really do. Although a lot of people that know me at this age think that I'm lying to them. But I really am like that. Then you have the students who are so competitive, they'll do things like sabotage somebody else's experiment, right? I've been in those classes. So in class, we need to try and make sure that they aren't feeling isolated, or that students aren't being bullied, or that students are being allowed to express themselves, and we don't have just one person doing all the talking. And so also, the more they learn to cooperate with each other and learn from each other, the more work is going to increase, or increases involvement. And also giving them the environment where they can speak freely without fearing that the teacher's going to step on them.
Can I say one thing here? How many of you have ever had, you buy something that has to be assembled and you pull out the instructions and you start assembling it and it's really complicated? What do you do very first? You pull out the instructions and over and over again, I will read those instructions aloud to myself. Not because I can't understand them, but when I'm talking to myself, it helps me clarify my own thinking. It's actually the act of talking helps cognition. So when you have students talking with each other, not just writing things down on their own individually, when you have them talking about it, it helps clarify their own thinking, their cognition.
There's a professor in the College of Pharmacy, y'all all may know her, but Ashley Castleberry has taught me a ton about active learning strategies, but one of the things that she does is called Think, Pair, Share.
Yep.
Where she asks a question, she has them think about the answer, then they share it with their neighbor, and then she just calls on anyone randomly because they've had time to think about it, and if they still had no idea, they had time to get the answer from someone else.
Yeah.
And then she'll just call on random people, which to me, I think helps with that.
Yeah. And the talking part of that is really important
Yeah.
for them to really solidify the learning.
Actually, if you, speaking of books, there's another one called Classroom Assessment. It's on Classroom Assessment. It's a very simple book, but it's full of just ideas of what you can do to help to assess your students and their understanding of what's going on. And that's actually one of them. Okay. So I think the top one is so true. We don't listen, we don't learn by just listening to somebody chat at us. You know, unfortunately, we as the faculty can't open up their brain and pour in our knowledge and shut it and, you know, shake it and make it sit. They have to do the work to make the connections in their own brain. We can't do that for them. And so if they're just listening to us yak at them, they're not actively involved in that process. So they're not learning, as we've talked about before. And so the active process is so important for students learning.
The third point there, activities that engage students actively with content and skills. What that usually means is that you're asking students to actually solve some sort of a problem with that content or skills. It could be a clinical problem that they need to apply it to and solve that clinical problem. It could actually be a theoretical problem, especially if you're working with, you know, graduate students. But using the content to solve a real problem is what that's actually talking about. It's not just memorizing stuff.
And we all have the context of our work environment for the students that we're teaching. And so that's where you get your sort of ideas of what problems can I have them solve? What could go wrong that they might need to pull in this information in order to solve the problem or to get further along in treating the patient or whatever it is. So those are the kinds of things you're going to think about as you start trying to pull in active learning into your scenario. Yeah, Laura?
Well, and I had an epiphany last fall. I was teaching a graduate course, and I started truly applying some of these principles, and the students freaked out because they had never been given responsibility or as much as I was asking them to take. And so when you start doing this, you may find that the students are just like, what you want me to do what? And so again, being intentional with them, I found was, you know, explain, well, here are good teaching and good learning, and so just to help them along that path.
And you do have to model what you want them to do, because it's not just an automatic thing. I'm really horrible about that piece. I can think about what I want them to do, but I am not so good at explaining it to them. All right, so give prompt feedback. What's that mean?
So at the beginning of our course this semester, I asked the students what some of their expectations were for the course, and they got into groups and they worked on it. And one of them was, I don't want to get my first grade at the end of the semester.
Yeah.
Give grade promptly.
Yeah. And so, for instance, when I teach online, one of the things I say to I promise my students and say they can expect from me is I will give them feedback within 24 hours of some kind. And, you know, when you get down the line, we're talking about rubrics, those are really good for that. But they do need to know. They need to know if they're on track or not, especially if they're working on a big project and they're sort of floundering a little bit and they're not really sure. If you've given them no feedback, they're going to stop right there until somebody tells them something. right? So they need it fairly quickly. So when you are grading exams, you should try and grade them within a couple of days, not 2 weeks from today, right? They hand in a paper, you should try and grade it within a week, not 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, right? So, and of course, it all depends on how many students do I have. I mean, there are a lot of factors and time, and sometimes it means that you change the number of assignments you're giving, or you change the type of assignments you're giving.
And if it's multiple choice, I mean, going back to how to use Blackboard, you can set that all up in Blackboard. You can set up your quiz, and the students can get immediate feedback. So that's another tool that you can use for feedback,
Right.
if you're using online learning.
Ooh, and here's a radical idea that I just have come to understand in the last year or so. Feedback doesn't always have to be attached to a grade.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, that second bullet there says exactly that.
Right.
Okay.
And
That's
sometimes,
the non-evaluative.
yeah, and for our residents, we have like practice tests online, just to give them, you know, some practice. And again, it's not tied to a grade, it's just for them to assess their knowledge before the big test. So you
And
can
learn
do
how to
that too.
take the test.
Yeah.
Mm.
And sometimes you can even create question banks and let it pull, you know, 10 questions at a time. And you can do all of that in Blackboard, just to give your students some practice before the test. Because some people have anxiety before a test. And having something to practice with may help ease that anxiety. And it's not because they didn't study, but just the thought of a test gives them anxiety. So there's different ways to give them feedback and to also ease the anxiety of taking the test.
And the other thing is, we have to be observant in what we're doing. You know, in healthcare, it's sort of easy to say, you go practice, and I go do something else, right? But I should really be in there with them. We used to say practice makes perfect, and then one EMS instructor, and I'm sure it originated somewhere else, but practice makes perfect, wasn't it? It's perfect practice makes perfect. Because if I make mistakes as I'm practicing, I learn the mistakes.
I want to add one more thing on the feedback. I worked with one of our faculty in PEDS. She taught a session. We added some active learning. And for feedback, and this was immediate feedback for her, not for the students. We had a little bag, and we had sheets of paper for the students to ask what their fuzziest point was. What is it they did not understand after the hour-long session? So it was also a way for her to get feedback to see how she was doing. And, you know, people don't want to talk, so we had a little bag and let them write their questions on the bag, and there were 2 or 3 questions out of the group. So she read the questions and said, okay, you guys didn't understand this, and use that to reteach the session or explain that session. So feedback goes both ways. It's not just you giving feedback to the students, but also you getting feedback on whether they understood the concepts you're trying to teach them.
Okay. Time on task, we're going to speed this up a little bit because we want to have that.
Yeah.
So basically, we need to sort of stick to the schedule and move on.
Yes.
We also have to be clear about what the task is. Sometimes the student is totally clueless about what it is we want them to do. I'm sure you've all been there. You can also help by sort of helping students learn how to study, because unfortunately, they didn't necessarily learn it before they came to us. All right, high expectations. This is sort of interesting because it turns out that when we create high expectations, the students actually will try and rise to our expectation. If we have no expectation, they'll rise to that too, right? So if we want them to do extra, we need to model that and get them sort of going that way, and continually reinforcing that I expect you to be at this level. Okay?
What I try to do is I try to hypnotize them before we get started. And well, because I had to, teach IRB stuff, and I say, this is simple, you can do this. And so I try to like program them before we get going.
Yeah.
And try to boost them up so they're like, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
it. And it works, it does. I mean, that's part of,
Especially with IRB.
yeah, with it. Yeah, it's simple, you can do this.
Yeah.
It's really not. I'm totally lying, but it helps them.
You show that you believe in them, like that's
Yes.
the point, because I think they doubt themselves, and once you show like, I know you can do it, and that's why I expect you to do it, so they appreciate that, and then they will try to do their best to succeed.
Okay, any more on?
Just one thing. This principle operates in two ways. One, is, as you were saying, it's motivating for students to have somebody to help expect, great things out of them. Secondly, though, remember it's communicating with high expectations. So you have to tell them exactly what it is that they're supposed to be coming out of. That becomes their target for learning. That creates their cognitive expectation or their affective expectation for what they're supposed to be doing there to reach that target. So it's motivating and it's also informative.
Oops, I don't want Dr. Rodeo, Dr. Short. So we know that students come to us with all sorts of ways that they've learned to learn, or that they naturally learn. And so it isn't that we have to direct every lecture or every module to each of those, but to make sure that we are, throughout our courses, pulling all those learning styles together. And they're really learning preferences as opposed to learning styles. We have changed all that.
Can I say one thing about this?
Sure.
The research on this is fairly, over the last 8 or 10 years, I think, has shown, it used to be that people said, well, I've got a bunch of kinesthetic learners, so I need to teach this way to hit the kinesthetic learners. And the research has not supported that. What the research supports, though, is using teaching methods that appeal to a broad range of learners. Because most of our learners can adapt their own learning. I mean, they have certain preferences, but visual learners can also learn auditorily. Auditory learners can also learn visually. So using a variety of techniques to teach a group of students can appeal to all of those kinds of preferences.
And most of us are prime examples of that. Regardless of how we wanted to learn, we learned how we were expected to learn, right? Okay, I think we have we better, really, we're at 4:30.
We're going to take a 2-minute break.
Okay.
And I think it's time for the draw.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
The infamous or famous, I don't know which. This is Shaquila. You all have had contact with her to get in, so we're going to let her draw. All of them. All right.
Drum roll.
Whoop. Pankaj Mathur. Not here.
have to be present to win.
You have to be
Yeah.
present to win. Absolutely. And I apologize to that person for slaughtering his or her name. Oh, pretty sure this person isn't here either, but. Ahmad Al-Nazi. Oh, is that your student? Oh, okay. Third time's a charm. Matthew Jorgensen.
I am here.
All right, yay, Matthew.
You get to pick a book. Do you guys want to stand up and stretch a little bit or keep going?
Yeah, we've got 25 minutes left.
Keep going.
All right.
All right.
And in the interest of time, we're going to skip over to scenario 4. We're going to talk about Dr. Roby. we're going to, like other meetings. Read that. This is sort of a short one, so if you finish reading, just look up and I'll know we can.
Yeah, you know the drill.
All right,
Find someone else.
that's right.
I know where to get
Let's go ahead and find someone else.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's
He showed up for
What did you do well? Well, I guess
And this one
All right. We need to give you another minute. Are you ready to go on out?
Time on task, it's time to switch. Yeah, find another two, so you can afford the two. And then it's going to be 2 extra, so you can enjoy the team and then you can turn around.
Yeah.
All right, well, join us.
Well, so you really did anything good.
Yeah, you can join
That's right. He didn't fail us,
give them a problem.
and ask them what they have to like from me.
There's a laugh. That was Dimboy. It's like, not everyone has teacher needs to say that.
Use technology to draw the kids out. So it's always like a credit or a challenge, like you can write out the education. That way, it's like not
So and see what they can take these.
Yeah,
I love
That's true.
You all know that. Very weird. But I go to pure anything. Oh, that's a great one. Remember that? I have all the good like back on the plane. Yes. And the thing is like I was so lucky.
Did I miss the sign-in sheet? I was trying to look for that.
He was so lucky because they
Okay.
well, like doesn't need to do they made like
Right, it's time to report
yeah, I think so at 6 tonight.
So, what did Dr. Rodeo do well?
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, he was not doing very well. You know?
He showed up.
He was
showed
poor
up,
Dr. Rodeo. And he was prepared.
And it was his first rodeo.
That's
He may have been assigned to teach this, that happens sometimes. Uh-oh, somebody quit, you gotta do it.
Right,
Yep. Okay?
And he doesn't know.
He probably doesn't. Because he didn't come to Educators Academy either.
he didn't realize he was doing something wrong, yeah.
And that's actually pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
And this is very typical of these large classes that she mentioned. We have a large auditorium-style class with 120 students, and professors will walk in and talk to the whiteboard. Because it's a large class, it happens.
okay. So, what principles did he neglect?
All of them?
All of them. That's really the simplest way to go. And so, what would we do differently for him? He's coming to us for advice, and now we need to give him some advice.
He sat through an Educators Academy class.
All right. Yes.
That would be true.
Yes.
Say that again, I didn't.
Oh, that he sit through an Educator Academy class.
Yes.
There's an app for that.
There's
Our group even said maybe have to be able to watch some others, have some people modeling some other teaching
Right.
methods so that it would help them.
That's excellent.
Just turn around.
Yeah.
Turn
And
around.
face your
And talk to your
class.
students.
Talk to the students, yes.
And that can be tough because in chemistry they're writing formulas and drawing out atoms and blah, blah, blah. But again, it's something for the online environment, right? And then he could do more with his students, plan more actual activity.
Using technology to help engage the students.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking when I was reading this just now. I was talking to Kathy about, how do you use what the students are using to engage them? So they are texting and talking. And there are various tools I was talking about. There's a web-based tool called Today's Meet. It's online, if you Google it up, today's meeting. And you can use that for them to use their phones, and you can put it up. So they can use their phones then to be texting whatever you want them to text. And that can be a way to get them engaged. So it's not to say, put down your phones and turn around and listen to me, but then leverage that and say, okay, what can we do with the tools that we're carrying to get them engaged. So to turn that around too.
If you could demonstrate some experiments in the class to show what
Yeah.
the action.
Yeah, chemistry. Yeah.
Chemistry.
Chemistry.
We talk about playing to his strength. He obviously uses a whiteboard there, but also have students come up with him. Have bring your own whiteboard and draw something and show it. See if you know it. So that he doesn't feel all bad.
Or you could, do something like have a tablet that attaches to the computer that you can draw on, so we can actually face them and draw. There is an app
for that, yeah.
Okay, so this is our last one. And basically we want you to take a minute or so and think about what have we used and what could we get used? Just thinking about the 7 principles.
It's time for you to give us feedback.
Because you're not going to hurt our feelings.
Student faculty contact.
Who wants to write it down?
What are we talking?
You can talk about it and just report back.
Oh.
That's right.
Set up the expectation.
Clear about it. And I was not, and as I said, not very good at that clear stuff.
Active learning.
Feedback.
Feedback.
I think you used everything except high expectations. There were no expectations when we came here. It could have been anything, which is kind of exciting.
True.
Cookies.
Smart out there.
Cookies, soda, cake, something.
That's good feedback for the
Got
next
water.
the session next week. Cookies.
So overall, how do you feel about this? All right.
I just have a question. You're talking about communicating high expectations. What could you suggest for the next time we do this? First of all, I was gonna say we left it out by design so you could have something to pick on. But
But you did give expectations, and the expectations are here where you said, we hope that you will understand 5 out of the 7. Well, how do you make it high?
yeah.
We can make it 7.
And I think there's some things we probably could have done with expectations about participation. What do you do in your pairs? What do you do? I mean, we gave you instructions, but we didn't set expectations like we could have said. And when you get together in your group of 4, each one of you should have something to contribute. And we could have set those expectations more clearly, so that everybody would have clear guidance, a target to shoot for.
But I like this surprise.
So I guess we cater to diverse learners.
You did ask for everyone's expectations in the room, and so you were trying to give each person hopefully what they
Something
were
they
hoping
could
to achieve today.
You could let us know that by the end we need to be able to give 2 specific ideas that we're going to implement with 2 of the 7 strategies in our own classes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's why we left
Good.
10 minutes.
That's
Adjusting teaching, yeah.
Actually, that's excellent.
That's excellent, yeah.
Because that's what we want you to do, is to think about, okay, we've talked about these 7 principles, but how am I going to take it back to my world and make it work? And you don't want to do all 7 at once, because that's very overwhelming. But if you pick 1 or 2, that is doable.
Application. So one of the things that we did, if you look at, someone mentioned the think, pair, share. This is similar, but it's a different way to get everybody engaged. So all of you got to talk to someone you have not spoken to before, which in most of the time we do teams. It's great, but you're stuck to the same group of people the whole time. But this encourages us to talk to people and talk to other people. So you could also try something different. You can do a think, pair, share, but make sure that maybe they have different pairs each time, so students can get to talk to each other. And this also encourages student cooperation, because they may not talk to each other at all, But if you try something different, they may talk to each other in class and out of class. And that could also be a rich learning experience. Is there anything else, any other feedback you have for us?
Or any questions?
Any questions?
Did you want the blue sheets completed?
Those,
Yes,
yes, they would
please,
like
yeah.
the blue sheets completed, and those go to Laura.
To Laura.
You just leave them where, and I'll pick them up. That'd be great.
Laura, are we gonna put all this information up on a website or in Blackboard or something for them?
Yes, we haven't, I hadn't really thought about that, but yes, I think we should. And there is a community for Educators Academy that we can put all the content up, so.
You'll send us the information on how to access it,